Good morning and welcome. This is an emergency meeting of the San Felipe Board of Trustees for San Felipe Duro CISD this March 14th, 2020. I welcome each and every one of you. I thank the board members for being here on spring break on a Saturday early morning. Madam Secretary, would you do us the honor of calling roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Guanajuato Beb?
Present.
Ms. Haynes?
Here.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Oberfeld?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will have opening ceremonies, first with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you for your interest this morning. This conversation with this very important item is ever evolving. We've had several meetings and every day there seems to be some new information regarding this topic. Again, I want to thank the board members for making every effort. I know many of you have scheduled other items that you were going to be doing this morning, but because of this very important topic, we are here. There's so many questions that are still unanswered in regard to this topic. As we prepare for what is coming, again, we await information that we still do not have. Questions, for example, do we extend the spring break in regard to our students, the testing requirements from TEA, graduation, earning credits, those things have to still be discussed and information is forthcoming. I know that Dr. Rios has been in contact with many superintendents and representatives from Texas Education Agency. Some items are beyond our control. As board members, we think of those topics. For example, feeding. I know I mentioned this yesterday. We had another emergency meeting with other representatives from different organizations. If we do allow our students to remain at home, how are we going to transport meals and services to them? So this conversation will continue. We are not going to be able to touch on every subject, but as more information becomes available, I'm sure that those discussions will be held. I'll turn it over to Dr. Rios.
Good morning, Mr. Mesa, members of the board. If it's okay with you, Mr. Mesa, can I step off the dais and make the presentation to begin our workshop?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, the discussion pertaining to imminent threat to public health and safety, this will be a presentation again by Dr. Rios.
All right. Thanks to everyone for being here. I know it's been just a little bit of a stressful last few days with everything that's going on. I appreciate obviously our board members who've been in contact all week and everybody from teachers to administrators who have come together in the last couple of days to finalize a plan. Let's just begin with our current status and risks. We just want to make sure everybody is certain from all the conversations that we've had with health officials and city leaders, At least at this time, we have no confirmed coronavirus cases. However, there are significant indications from health authorities that the coronavirus will easily spread. There's also significant advising directives, whether it be from our president or our governor and other local authorities, to act to prevent the spread of COVID-19. To this end, our goal as a school district is to do everything we can to slow down the spread of the coronavirus, to make sure that we take every step necessary to limit activities so that this virus will just hold off long enough for health authorities to provide solutions to our community. In looking at statistics, we know that Mother Nature is going to win this one, and the coronavirus is going to do what it's going to do. But if we could just hold off long enough and make prudent decisions together, then by the time that it does spread, everybody's going to be okay. They'll have enough test kits, they'll have enough whatever medical supplies are necessary to just help everyone be just fine. I think that the understanding and the sentiment is that we're going to be okay. We just need time to get there. And that's certainly the message that we started talking at the local level. But yesterday when we heard the governor speak, that was the message that they sent as well. We also want to be able to provide instructional continuity to our students during this process. And we want to be able to provide a food nutrition program to our students in this process. So here's what we're recommending to our trustees: that you approve a resolution to suspend student attendance for 14 school days. We've been working long, for 10 school days, 2 weeks, for the next 2 weeks. Now, this is different than what other communities are doing. Other communities are just extending spring break. That means nobody's coming to school. The doors are remaining shut. We're asking that it be the students that stay home, and in a little bit I'll explain why, but it has a whole lot to do with the implementation of a home-based school services. We'd like for our teachers and employees to come to work on a modified basis, and we've talked to the principals, to begin to put lessons together that we will then share with students, whether it be email or other electronic systems, and we discussed this at length with our principals yesterday. The reason for that is that, one, the state indicated, the Commissioner of Education indicated through a phone conference that all superintendents in the state of Texas had yesterday, that they fully expect this to be longer than 2 weeks. And that if we are providing educational services, whether it be through homework packets or online services, then there's two good things that will come of it. One, we'll get funded. We'll still continue to receive our ADA. And two, there won't be any need to extend the calendar beyond May in order to provide funding. Obviously, they haven't made their decisions, but this was their initial indication. So because we expect that this might, very possibly might, go beyond the 2 weeks, it's important that we start assembling this home-based instructional program. And if it's just our teachers that are working at the campuses without the students, we can create this social separation where you're at work, but you're not necessarily in contact with each other. We'd also like for the board to authorize the superintendent to apply for missed instructional day waivers and low attendance day waivers as they may become available through the state. We'd like the board to approve the superintendent to excuse absences for any employee who's under medically directed quarantine for up to 14 consecutive days. Authorize the superintendent to make compensation decisions and adjustments to impacted employees as deemed appropriate to fulfill the purposes of this resolution. In essence, we're asking the board to allow the superintendent to continue to pay employees even when they have to stay at home for any of the items discussed in this resolution right now, specifically for health reasons. Now, we'd like to require quarantine. We know that there are students that went on these trips out of the country. We know that there's adults that went on these trips, but we also know that there's other adults that work for the school system that went to high-risk areas, including countries in Europe, that also need to be quarantined. So we'd like the board to approve that the superintendent is authorized to direct them to stay away from work for a period of up to 14 days. Or if they are the parents, if any of our employees are parents of kids that went on any one of these trips. In other words, if you had contact with anyone in your home that went on these trips or was exposed to any of these high-risk areas, stay home, and we will continue to pay you, but stay home. And in the event that there are other waivers or immediate actions needed, that the superintendent is authorized, in consultation with our board president, Mr. Mesa, to take any action to submit, apply for other waivers in accordance with guidance instructions from TA. We know that this is changing all the time. And we know that we can't meet, although we are in a state of emergency that was declared by the governor yesterday. Rather than have the whole board come meet, you're authorizing me to take any appropriate action, so as long as I consult with our board president. Now we want to talk a little bit about the district's child nutrition services. Our food company, SFE, they've teamed up with Transportation Department to provide free breakfast and sack lunches at various drop-off points in the community. We'll have 9 school buses deliver meals to 29 community locations. For example, a bus that would be driving out of Garfield with meals would take meals to the Yuko Park, then over here to St. Joseph's Church, so people from those neighborhoods can come, then St. Joseph's Church, and then Greenwood Park. That way students don't have very far to walk. If their parents are at work, they can still have access. So we have 9 buses that will go out to 3 or 4 different locations throughout the community, starting Monday, to provide these meals. And as it moves on, then they'll know if they need to provide more meals or less meals. But they've all already indicated, by they, I mean the federal government, that there will be reimbursement for any meals that we provide. The state has indicated that there'll be reimbursements for any additional costs that we incur responding to COVID-19. We expect that breakfast will be delivered at any of these locations between 8 and 9:15. Based on your approval, we'll do a public statement, a media advisory indicating all the locations and times. And then lunch will be between 11 and 1 p.m. That means that I would authorize SFE to begin working overtime as early as today and tomorrow to begin prepping for these meals. Instructional continuity, we believe that we have enough teachers in the district, enough personnel where we could have one teacher do case management on 15 students, 1 to 15. They would collect the work from the students' teachers. They'd send the work out through other electronic means such as Class Dojo or Remind or email. We deliver by U.S. mail for those individuals that just don't have the means. And we would even drop off in their mailboxes or in the front porch so that there would be no contact. And then returning the work, they would either return it either through Class Dojo or Remind of their elementary or their secondary email or a self-addressed stamped envelope as a last case scenario. But we believe that we can start doing all of this week and talking to the principals. And again, this deviates from some other districts in our surrounding areas that have extended spring break. But we think that we can begin to make these preparations because, as indicated from the state, this is kind of for the long haul. Other administrative actions that have already been taken is 100% of extracurricular activities have been canceled. UIL has also canceled competition statewide. We started as a district indicating that anything that wasn't UIL was canceled. So if our cheerleaders or bells or dance company or had some competitions, those were canceled. If there was any rehearsals for band, they were canceled. Sub-varsity was canceled. And then I talked to the superintendents or the athletic directors in the region yesterday, and I asked them that I did not feel comfortable sending students on a bus because of the close proximity and what they consider canceling just the rest of the UIL seasons. Before they even gave me a response, UIL came out with their own message saying it's canceled. So they saved us the debate on that. So we've canceled everything already. It's just for the board to take the final action and assist us in doing this 2-week period for now. Then we'd meet again to discuss. This is what we've talked about. This is what we're prepared to do. Do y'all have any questions? Do you want me to go back to any slide discussions? I turn it over to you, Mr. Mesa.
Questions? We'll start on this side.
I'm gonna pass for now. I'm gonna listen to everybody else.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll come back.
Okay, we can come back. No, Mr. Contreras?
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Thank Dr. Rios and appreciate everybody that's here. It seems like you really thought this out, and I appreciate it, and it seems like a good job, and I personally am in agreement to with this. However, I would like to add that that we also have or put together and be at the forefront of a meeting not only with Laughlin Air Force Base, with the city and the county, because at this point we need to have a collective effort and a contingency plan of what we're going to do in the future. Because, like you just mentioned, this is not a short thing going on. We're probably going to be here months at a time, and I think at this point we need to pull together and join together as a community to see what we can do. Being the largest single employer, I think it's a good idea for us to not only take care of our staff and our students, but also the community itself, because at the end of the day, we could have a domino effect here. So to me, is gather our resources, pull together. Also, this is kind of scary because it reminds me of the movie Virus. You know, you just never thought we were going to be at this point, you know, in today's day and age. But we need to be at the forefront, Dr. Rios, and it seems like you have a great idea. It's just adding a plan in place, and I don't know if you can call a meeting with the other government agencies, including Laughlin, and come together what we're going to do for the long haul. So, thank you, sir.
Anyone else on this side? Mr. Overveld?
As Mr. Contreras stated, I like the idea, and I know we're doing something different than what the vast majority of the state is doing just by extending spring break. And while this announcement's going to come here in a bit, the ultimate official announcement of closing it to students for 10 school days or 2 weeks, and then allowing or still having the teachers come in to work to begin preparing all the packets and stuff, because it is coming on a Saturday, and I know I had bounced this idea off you, and I'm going to bounce it off the rest of the board. I know you said that food service is ready to go starting Monday, or will be ready to go starting Monday. I didn't know if it was something that would still be possible to go in and push the report back to work day by at least a day to Tuesday, to give those that are on their way back right now the ability to go in and find or arrange for childcare, because we know we do have teachers that are going to have students that aren't going to be attending, but they would have to be here, and finding childcare is going to be difficult. Maybe just pushing the report day back to work by at least a day, saying, okay, we're going to report back on Tuesday, and that would give them an extra day tied to the rest of today and Sunday. But everything else I agree with and looks good, and I echo Mr. Contreras' thoughts and ideas of definitely keeping in contact with the city, county, and Laughlin about where we go after the 14 days as we get into it further, so.
Thank you. I wanted to also ask a question, and I'll turn it back to the other board members that have questions, but in regard to having the students being out for 10 days, there needs to be some information, because the way we're going to prevent any of this spreading is by social distancing. So it doesn't mean that, okay, the kids have 10 days to congregate at the mall, congregate at the movies, congregate at the skating rink, or wherever. So we do have to communicate that with, I know we've met with different organizations. How are we going to keep the kids from, again, grouping in numbers at certain locations? And so that, I'm sure, will be addressed at some point with the entities that we have met with in the past. And I'm talking about, students might not be supervised at home and say, okay, let's all meet at the skating rink or bowling alley. And so that has to be communicated to them, that this does not mean for them to be, again, gathering in large groups. We're trying to prevent that by all means by them staying at home. And so that has to be communicated to our young people, the ones that will be at home. So I hope that, and again, this plan is very well thought out. I'm glad that I know you've had meetings with the principals on a Friday, and the conversation continues. But at some point, we do have to get the word out to our students that by no means are they going to congregate in large numbers at areas of interest to them. And so with that, I'll pass it on to, I think Ms. Gonzalez had a question as well.
The question was, Mr. Oberfeld alluded to it. I was going to ask about the same thing he said about the teachers doing all this, and food service and everything, and transportation, all of them. And yeah, but that's Mr. Mesa also is concerned about the kids going partying instead of staying home. But I don't know how we're going to be able to do that. And the people that are going to be taking care of these kids are elderly, grandchildren, grandparents. Those are the ones that are more susceptible to this virus, I believe. So there's just so many things that I know we can't solve everything overnight, but to consider it. Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Smith, I think.
Amy, go ahead if you got
Amy?
something. I'm sorry, I didn't want to
That's
get in your way.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the plan looks really good. I appreciate the principals and administration and whoever else came and put input into it. I think I like what Josh said about giving some of the teachers some time to regroup, get themselves together before they get into this. It's sad that, that it's coming, that we just have to be prepared like this, but I think this plan is really, really good, and I appreciate the time that you've all put into it.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Okay, first of all, I know you've lost a lot of sleep over this deal over the past week or so, and thank you for the effort. Good job, but I got a couple of questions tied to the package. Can you go back to page 4, because I'm confused. I keep hearing 10 days, and this says 14 days, so can you clarify that?
Yes, sir. When I began the presentation, I excused the typo. We're talking about 10 consecutive school days starting Monday. So okay. The resolution that we'll share with you will say 10 days. We'll
all right,
make the
thank you.
My apologies. It was almost perfect.
And then you kind of alluded on page 5, you kind of alluded to that second bullet a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Throughout the course, there's certain things that are going to happen. So, for example, Mr. Overfeld brought up the issue about giving teachers a day to take care of childcare needs or whatever they would need to do, because the rest of the school system, students would be at home. Something like this would allow me to just work with the principals and say, you know the condition of each one of your teachers. If they can't come to school tomorrow, on Monday, if they can't come to work on Monday, it's okay to give them the day on a case-by-case basis and just continue that collaboration. We also know that as we move forward, there's just a whole lot of decisions and autonomy that we have to give the principals. Take, for example, conference periods. So what I want to tell the principals is I know that a teacher is going to be doing a lot of work from home, online, because a lot of the work is going to be submitted online. And I just want everybody to have the freedom to just say, conference period comes up. We obviously aren't going to be conferencing with each other. Y'all can go home at 2:30, and we're paying you the full day.
Yep.
Just have that latitude to work with the staff, and I think that we have the right principles in place to work with their staff so that everybody can just make sure that we get through this and get some educational value out of it for our kids.
All right, so just common sense decisions during
Yes,
the
sir.
course of time. Makes sense. And then on page 6, are there things that these stay-at-home persons could do that would help the district? And I know y'all have got a lot of homework to do to prepare for what's going on.
Yes, sir. We talked about this yesterday, and I just talked to Dr. Pettis this morning because a lot of the teachers will be high school teachers. We're going to give them a letter indicating that the quarantine, advising them who to contact, who the hospital contact, but also outlining what they're expected to do from home in terms of this school-based instruction we're providing the students. So, yes, sir.
Okay, and any indication in any of your communications that you've had with state and like about testing availability? In other words, if we obviously you don't want to test if you're if you're just been normal functioning person, but if you're one of these persons that goes overseas and you've been I don't know what you call it, incubation time is a certain limit, and then is there just some common sense testing that's out there that said, okay, if your temperature doesn't go up in 5 days, you can go back to work or anything like that?
No, sir. We've read a whole lot about common sense things to do at home. Hold your breath for 10 seconds. If you can hold it and you don't have any discomfort, then more than likely you're okay. We've had that type of common sense discussion. But of anything that could limit the quarantine from 14 days to 7 days or anything less, have not heard anything about that. As a matter of fact, really haven't heard enough from the state as to when all the testing kits are going to be available. But I expect that here in the next couple of days, the information is just going to be flooding, at least after hearing what the governor said yesterday on the news.
Perfect. Okay. I don't have any questions, and good job. I support your initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll turn it over to Ms. Webb.
I agree with the rest of the panel. My concern, and I know that you've already addressed some with Mr. Smith and Mr. Oberfeld's concern about the teachers that have children, to give them the extra day to find sitters for them. But my concern has to do with, do we have enough infrastructure so that all of our teachers can function through emails? Because a lot of our students don't have Wi-Fi. And even though we're looking at delivering by U.S. mail, and we have somebody from the Postal Service on our board, how long does that take to get it to the students? And then the return as far as assignments and the accountability for those assignments, that's going to be placed on the teachers as well.
We have enough infrastructure. We talked about things as simple as students taking a picture with their phone or parents taking a picture with their phone and submitting it. We think that the mail option is going to be not as widely used. Having one teacher for 15 students is really going to be sufficient. We've indicated to the principals that any teacher that goes and drops off work at the doorstep, all of this can be refunded by the state, so we'll be paying mileage. We want to get to the point where most is done online, but we need to get to working on the details. And once the teachers start making contact with the students, we'll get a better sense of who needs what type of support in receiving and completing this work. We've talked at length about having one teacher do one lesson on YouTube if they need help. We've made it clear that it's not going to be homework at Buena Vista looks like this and homework at Laughlin Magnet looks like this. We've designated individuals to take care of that district-wide. So every first grader in the district will have the same math, the same reading. Every seventh grader taking seventh grade math, regardless of who the teacher is, it's all the same so that we can streamline any online instruction that we provide. There's a whole lot of work that needs to get done in the next few days, but we believe that we have the infrastructure, especially the human resources, to make this happen. We just have to start going and adjusting along the way. And I'll certainly keep the board informed as we're making these decisions.
With that question, I would like to give Mr. Contreras an opportunity if there's any any distraction in regard to mail delivery.
No, if there's one thing you can count on is the U.S. mail, so we'll be available. And I'm not pitching for my service or anything, but trust me, we have a plan in place to where we can deliver. We surely can.
I didn't mean that to be a free commercial.
Yeah. One last thing, Mr. Mesa, since you give me an opportunity, is we keep talking about principals and teachers. However, we do have paraprofessionals, and I would like for them to be treated the same and given the same latitude as just about everybody else. So, and the last thing I would want is for principals to take advantage of the paraprofessionals. You know, whether they're the aides, the cafeteria workers, the crossing guards, whatever the case may be, we treat them the same and give them the same latitude as all the employees. And then second, you know, be as transparent and honest as possible, because the last thing we want is rumors out there. I mean, it's a firestorm and it spreads like wildfire. You know, one bad rumor goes a long way. So be as transparent as possible when it comes to our business, you know, for as far as the school district, because we don't want the wrong information to be, you know, it seems that people take the Facebook, you know, a lot more serious than anything else. So please be as transparent and honest as possible, you know, coming from here. Also, just keep reminding everybody, safety, you know, like the safety meetings we have in the workforce, you know, safety starts with self. You know, be as safe as possible, you know, starting with our own self, and we go from there. Other than that, you know, hope everybody is taken care of, and we keep planning.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. And again, I appreciate all the discussion that our board members have, and just wanted to add something that I think our principals know our staff pretty much, the staff that works at the particular campus and their needs in regard to, you know, student supervision and, you know, making arrangements for them. So I appreciate everyone's concern, and I think they're valid concerns. At this point, I'm going to adjourn our workshop and move item 7 before 6 and open it for citizens to be heard. I've had one form that has been turned in. We have Marcela Gonzalez. Topic of discussion is imminent threat to the public.
Buenos días, Dr. Ríos y miembros del board. Mi nombre es Marcela González, trabajo en The Rio Middle School en la cafetería, y esta mañana quiero hablar como madre y como trabajadora. Tengo una joven estudiante también en el distrito y es muy preocupante lo que está pasando. Gracias, Dr. Ríos, por tomar estas precauciones. Realmente necesitamos esto. Para nosotros, para mí como madre es muy preocupante saber del grupo de jóvenes que salió hacia España con maestros y padres de familia. Hay un grupo de mujeres en Ciudad Acuña que salieron para Italia la semana pasada que tienen hijos en este distrito. Entonces es muy preocupante y para nosotros como residentes de la frontera, ¿verdad? Que tomen ustedes las precauciones, que hablen o se comuniquen y que lleven seguimiento a estos jóvenes que van a regresar, a estos maestros, a estos padres, ¿verdad? Y los niños que vienen de Ciudad Acuña, pues que también tengan un seguimiento si sus padres o sus madres fueron a ese viaje a Italia, porque sabemos la crisis, ¿verdad? Como trabajadora del distrito y en la cafetería, escuchar, ¿verdad?, de que se siga apoyando a los niños que no tienen alimento, que se les prepare. Les quiero platicar un poco lo que es preparar una bolsa de sack lunches, ¿verdad? Es un sándwich de jamón con queso, lleva fruta y lleva leche. Se escucha pequeño, pero es un proceso largo. No es tan fácil porque hay que empaquetar cada sándwich. Esto le hago mención, pues para que consideren también si van a poder trabajar la substitute, si van a poder venir a ayudar a preparar, o cómo SFI está planeando hacer este tipo de trabajo, ¿verdad? Para las señoras que vamos a estar trabajando, o no sé qué sea el plan, pero por lo que escuché de Dr. Ríos, ¿verdad? Es una muy buena opción de ayudar. Y también otra de mis preguntas o inquietudes es si estos 14 días o estos 10 días que los niños van a estar fuera de escuela, ¿no piensan que sería probable o sería mejor que en el verano recuperaran esos 10 días? No sé si lo estén contemplando o piensen que pueda ser una solución viable, ¿verdad? Nada más era eso, quería compartirles mi temor como madre y, ¿verdad?, pues mi opinión como trabajadora del distrito. Gracias, y pues que Dios les dé sabiduría para tomar una buena decisión. Todo lo que propone Dr. Ríos, en mi opinión, es algo muy, muy bueno para prevención. Gracias.
Gracias.
Que tengan buen día.
Sam, would you like to translate, Sandra? As much as you can.
I'll attempt to summarize what she said. She is explaining that she's coming in as not as a SFE worker, as a cafeteria worker, but also as a mother who has a daughter, and she is concerned as well for both angles. She appreciates the efforts that the district has put together and has concerns over how they're going to plan on preparing the meals, whether or not we would allow substitute workers to come in and allow the preparation of meals. She's not certain of the plan and the order of the plan, but would like for the consideration of to be able to for that assistance. And also is concerned about being able to reach out for those families who are affected. She is aware of some families that live in Acuña, but children come to school in Del Rio, and how we would outsource information or instruction or to those children as well.
Thank you very much. And we're going to discuss again after this item, but I would like to allow opportunity for those people that might not have signed up this morning. We do have some time for public comments if anyone wishes at this time. Yes. Would you come, Mr. Sheedy?
Thank you, President Mesa, school board members, Dr. Rios. John Sheedy, Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Del Rio. I want to come up and just very briefly mention that it is a little bit disheartening to kind of talk about, well, somebody needs to take the lead, and the district really needs to take the lead on this. We've already been having, for the last 2 weeks, local emergency planning committee meetings. We have had Laughlin, we have had representation community-wide through the hospital, we're making a lot of efforts. We're already combined. I believe there already is a community effort in place, and I would just ask the district to ensure that they encourage participation as much as available into those meetings, because the situation is this involves much more, and certainly the district is the largest employer. However, the city of Del Rio, there's a lot of, we have nursing homes, we have hospitals, we have businesses, we have other schools, and so this needs to be managed, I believe, through the city and the county of Val Verde. We have created a local emergency planning committee that we've worked very, very hard to set up bylaws and to get in place, and it's completely operational. It has been functional, and that's exactly what that was designed for. So, and the school board's always, I mean, the school has always been very cooperative with us when we work together. I just would please like to everyone to remember that we have been making efforts. We have been working with the state. We have been, I worked last night and the night before. I was getting questions on the students who are in Spain. We're all getting questions through different means. And I worked on those till 9:30 at night, getting all kind of questions and trying to follow epidemiology. So there's, we're all getting the same questions. And so that's just what I wanted to mention, that please remember we already do have a community effort in place. And I think we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to utilize what we have. Certainly, one of the biggest things that we've worked on is, and this is an exact situation where that comes into place, is a emergency operations center. And we do have one at the city of Del Rio. We have one of the greatest emergency operations centers in the entire region. We still have a little bit of work to do, some finalizing on it. However, it is functional. I'm on the verge of activating that emergency operations center probably from 8 to 5. It'll just be activated at level 2, which means there will be ongoing meetings. That will be a place where we can have joint media broadcasts. We're having requests for all kind of things to get together and have efforts combined. So we fully intend to utilize that center, and I think barring something like that where we can all come together and work out of a center like that, a lot of it's going to be just we're chasing our tails. So I just felt I had to come up and say that, because I think it is important that we understand that we need to unify behind a community effort. I commend the board. I appreciate everything they're trying to do. Dr. Rios, the steps you're taking, thank you, sir, and I think I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to correct you. I was corrected.
Oh,
Real quick, sorry to speaking out of line, but
Wait.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr. President,
Winter.
if I can just, and again, it was our mistake. We put citizens to be heard, and then we put agenda item 6, so that then the board can respond to any community comments. But I would just encourage our board to follow the same protocols that we have at every meeting and not respond to citizens' comments. At the next agenda item, then we can certainly have our discussions. Is that okay, Mr. Mesa?
sure, that's the procedure that we normally take. We have someone else that would like to come to the podium. Once you come to the podium, please identify yourself.
Muy buenos días, muchas gracias al señor Ríos, ¿verdad? A los board members. Mi nombre es Beatriz Arispe, soy trabajadora de las cafeterías. Nomás para de high school y city, nomás para un punto que ha estado pasando, ¿verdad? En estos días, de que ha habido muchas enfermedades. Yo estuve fuera de la escuela ciertos días porque me agarró la influencia. Fui a trabajar unos días enferma, sí. A las 2 semanas cayó una compañera enferma. La compañera siguió trabajando. A las 2 semanas otra compañera que estaba cerca de mí de otra escuela. O sea, está muy bien lo que se va a hacer, nomás quisiéramos que todas las escuelas se fueran bien desinfectadas de todo. O sea, yo sé que se está haciendo todo lo mejor que se tiene que hacer, pero es una cadenita que se ha estado llevando ahorita en estos últimos 2 meses, ¿verdad? Por querer cumplir uno con su trabajo, a veces comete el error de ir enfermo. Está pasando. No había visto yo esto que está pasando ahorita en años atrás. O sea, hemos sido una tras otra, de una escuela, de otra escuela. O sea, hay que tener nosotros conciencia también de que tenemos que, si estamos enfermos, quedarnos en casa. Los niños pasan, destornudan por la línea, uno está de este lado sirviendo, en lo que se para la línea y va uno y limpia, ya pasaron 7, 8 niños, 10 niños. Entonces, por más sanidad que queramos tener nosotros en ese momento, no podemos parar las líneas porque los niños tienen que su tiempo de comida y tienen que pasar. Para cuando vamos nosotros a agarrar el trapo con cloralex, limpiar, ya pasaron 15 niños. Y ese niño ya contagió al otro, ya contagió al otro, ya contagió al otro. Están en el salón de clases, estamos cerquitas unos de otros, nos estamos contagiando. O sea, hay que prevenirnos, ¿verdad? Tener un buen sistema de limpieza, por más que queramos, ¿verdad? No nos da el tiempo. Era todo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Buenos días.
Sandra?
She is also a cafeteria staff worker working at the high school. She comments that over the past few weeks, there has been a flu. She's been sick herself. There have been other coworkers that have also picked up the flu, and so one right after the other. She's concerned and wants to point out that we take precautions to disinfect and use standard cleaning, so proper cleaning, deep cleaning in our schools. She also proposes that we have a plan to continue a cleaning system. We know we have students that go through the line, and even though they clean and disinfect, their students who may not practice their respiratory etiquette, covering their coughs and such. But she also says that each one of us need to take that precaution as well, and also that individuals as co-workers and workers, that we each be responsible. If we're sick, stay at home.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I think you have done a tremendous job in translating.
Thank you.
There being no other citizens to be heard, we will now go to item 6. An emergency or urgent public necessity exists that requires immediate action of the board, or an imminent threat to public health and safety or reasonably unforeseeable situation exists as follows. Immediate action is required due to an imminent threat to the public health and safety relating to COVID-19. The district has also learned of several members of the community who have traveled to countries designated with COVID-19 outbreaks and with travel warnings and bans from CDC. The threat to the state, community, and district is imminent, as reported by federal and state officials, and the situation qualifies as an epidemic under 551.045B2C. At this time, we will have discussion. Dr. Rios?
Yes, Mr. Mesa, just a couple comments were made by our cafeteria staff, and I wanted to just mention that we've asked, or we've given SFE the authority to just call in additional help as needed so that everything can work. This is something new that we're going to be trying, but if SFE thinks that they need additional personnel to do this production, we've authorized them to do that. I know that Ms. Childress will be monitoring the additional help that's used so that at the end we can all apply for whatever assistance the federal government and the state provides. But everybody has the latitude to use personnel as necessary, and we're going to be fine with this. Any questions that the board have before we go into closed session, we'll do our best to answer.
From my end on that comment, I mean, that's part of your common sense stuff that we talked about earlier, so yeah, I'm good with it.
We will have Mr. Overfeld.
I have a question. Emergency management coordinator came up here and talked about the different entities getting together. I know there was a meeting that was printed in the paper. Was the school district invited to that?
Let me say this. Yesterday, day before yesterday, I received a message from the emergency manager for the county, and I asked Mr. Mesa if he would be able to join, and he did. So we did have a meeting. I understand that there was meetings before. I know that I asked Chief Maldonado to look into the meetings because I was not aware of the first meeting. But I think that since then, Chief Maldonado has gotten with different people and corrected that communication. So moving forward, we can be part of those meetings. I see Mr. Maldonado shaking his head, so I believe I'm speaking correctly.
You know, I wanted to mention something in regard to that, Mr. Overfeld. I think every entity, whether it be hospital, county, city, are having their discussions in regard to this very important topic. But I think as a board, no one is going to address the needs of our staff and our students better than we are as elected officials. I think our discussion here has not been disheartening. I think it's been very worthwhile discussion, and it will proceed. Again, changes being made every day. But again, we're here to represent our children, our staff, our administration, and we are elected officials, and we're doing the best job ever. With that being said, Mrs. Webb.
I just want to add one comment that a lot of times our students come to school sick. Our parents send them to school with a runny nose, etc. Parents need to be more cautious, even though we're trying to clean, like we mentioned in the cafeterias, and disinfect. And definitely, I know Dr. Rios is going to be looking at that to make sure that better efforts are done in that area. Our parents in the community need to do the same at home. And if their child is sick, don't send them to school, because I know that they worry that, well, they don't have perfect attendance. If I don't send them, they're not going to have perfect attendance. This is the time that we have to pull together, and our parents need to know the importance of the child being healthy before coming to school and not have to worry about anything else other than the healthy issue with their child. Because this is where things happen, like our cafeteria manager, or our cafeteria staff members were indicating. So again, it goes back to each campus, each principal, to relay that to the teachers and the teachers to the parents. Don't send your child to school if they are sick.
Thank you very much.
Fred wants to say something.
Mr. Gonzalez?
No, just to Mr. Sheedy, if you happen to have meetings, Mr. Sheedy, make sure you involve the school district in every meeting if possible. And then just for a point of reference, I was corrected. We are not the largest single employer. It's Laughlin Air Force Base, over 6,000 people. We are the number 2. So just a point of reference on that.
Thank you. Dr. Rios.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. From the school administration point, I want to share with the board just 2 things. And really for the community, I've been getting some text messages from different individuals. So I know people are watching in the community, and we have certainly a good crowd here. I want to tell our board of trustees, first of all, thank you, because I know that each one of us have been in communication. We've probably talked more to each other consistently over the last couple of days, so I appreciate your concern and your availability. Definitely been stressful, but just knowing that it's a team of 8 moving forward, it feels incredibly comforting, so I appreciate that. I also want to tell the board, and by extension our community, that the communication between the school district and the community leaders were, whether it be the city manager, Mr. Winofsky, who's here, the county executive director, the judge, the wing commander at Laughlin. We have everybody's personal cell phone, and calls are returned quickly. Text messages are returned quickly, and we appreciate that. We know there's a lot of players and there's going to be frustration, but I want to reassure the board and our community that the lines of communication between the leaders in the community are open, and I appreciate their calls. This morning, I know that the wing commander and I texted briefly this morning. So there is communication, and I think that working together, this is going to be difficult, but it's going to be just fine in the end. And we'll certainly keep working on a daily basis. And principals, I know that a lot of times we say different things that need to get done, and it sounds like a directive, but appreciate all the time and energy that you all spend and your willingness to come in, whether it's spring break or weekends. We're going to be just fine. We just need to make some hard decisions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This time we're down to item 8, closed session. We are permitted to go into closed session by sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084, and 551.087 of the Texas Government Code, Texas Open Meetings Act. If a final vote is required, it will be taken upon returning into open session. Pursuant to section 551.071, consultation with legal counsel on COVID-19 related matters, 551.074, personnel, 551.0821, confidential student matters. We are now in closed session. The time is 8:58 a.m. Okay, the time is 9:33 a.m. We now reconvene into open session. No action was taken in executive session. We're down to item 9 on our agenda. Take action on closed session items. A, consider and take possible action on a board emergency resolution relating to COVID-19 response and discussion pertaining to same. Dr. Rios.
Mr. Mesa, members of the board, I will read the resolution that we have drafted. Ask for patience, it's a lengthy one. And then hopefully one of the board members will make a motion and then have discussion if necessary. Waiver of procurement policies for COVID-19 related work, waiver for missed instructional days, low attendance approval of pay during closure, authorization of other state waivers. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD, the district, has a substantial public interest in protecting the health and safety of its students, staff, and community. Whereas the district's community, including its personnel, students, and their families, have been or are likely to be substantially impacted by the COVID-19 virus. Whereas the board and administration are following advice and directives from federal, state, and local authorities in responding to the COVID-19 virus. Whereas through circumstances completely beyond their control, district employees may be forced to miss work days due to likely closure of school facilities and operations. Whereas there is a public purpose served and a benefit to the district to continue paid during school-wide closures to demonstrate support for its employees, enhance morale, and support retention of employees so they can resume work with minimal impact on students once school reopens and work resumes. Whereas the board finds that a public purpose exists for excusing absences of employees who are under medically directed quarantine or advice of their doctor for up to 14 consecutive calendar days. Whereas the board finds that a public purpose exists for the superintendent to direct and require quarantine of employees and instructs that they not attend work as described below. Those who have traveled within the past 7 to 10 days to an area within the United States where spread of the virus that causes COVID-19 has been reported is an elevated risk of exposure, such as Santa Clara, California, Seattle, Washington, New Rochelle, New York, the entire state of Florida, the entire state of Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. Any level 3 designated countries, any country in Europe or otherwise had direct contact with persons known to the employee's family that have traveled to the same locations in the same time period. Such quarantine from attending School or school-related events shall extend at least 14 days with the state the employee returned home as 0 day and the next day as day 1. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD at a lawfully called meeting of the board held in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act formally declares that COVID-19 constitutes an unforeseen and unavoidable emergency. The superintendent of schools has the authority and is supporting the decision to suspend student attendance through March 30th, 2020, and is encouraged to prepare home-based school services in the event that students are not able to return to school. Immediate action is necessary to be able to minimize the impact to staff, families, and community. Procurement waiver, the delays posed by the normal Chapter 44 procurement process and corresponding board policies, coupled with the need to procure services and support to respond to COVID-19 to ensure safety of all students, staff, property, and equipment, will prevent or substantially impair student safety and other essential school activities. The board declares as an emergency under Section 44.031H of the Texas Education Code and is therefore suspending its normal purchasing policies and authorizing the superintendent to make emergency procurements reasonably necessary to respond to COVID-19. Waiver of instructional days. The superintendent is authorized to apply for missed instructional day waivers, and low attendance day waivers are also to be submitted for future dates as may be necessary and approved by the Texas Education Agency. Absence waivers. The superintendent or designee is authorized to excuse absences for any employee who is under a medically directed quarantine for up to 14 consecutive days, paid during closure. The board determines that the district may continue pay and benefits subject to any requirements or guidance from the state to employees who are impacted by a federal, state, or local health agency ordered school-wide closure of the employee's assigned campus or duty station. The board finds that a public purpose and benefit to the school and its students exists to compensate employees for work days missed due to closures of their assigned school facilities as a result of COVID-19, and that this is necessary in conduct of public schools pursuant to Education Code, Section 45.105, Subchapter C. The board authorizes the superintendent to make compensation decisions and adjustments to impact employees as deemed appropriate to fulfill the purposes of this resolution. Quarantine. The superintendent shall direct and prohibit employees who have traveled within the past 7 to 10 days to an area within the United States where the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19 has been reported is an elevated risk of exposure, such as Santa Clara, California, Seattle, Washington, New Rochelle, New York, the entire state of Florida, the entire state of Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C., or to any level 3 designated counties, to any country in Europe, or who otherwise had direct contact with persons known to the employees or their family that have traveled to the same locations in the same time period from attending work or school-related events for a quarantine period. Such quarantine period from attending work or school district-related events shall extend at least 14 days with the date the employee returned home as day 0 and the next day as day 1. The superintendent may extend or amend requirements based on guidance from the state and local health officials. Paid during quarantine. For the same reasons supporting paid during closures, any employee under required quarantine shall continue to receive pay and benefits as normal. In the event other waivers or immediate action is needed, the superintendent is authorized in consultation with the board's chair to take other action and to apply for other waivers in accordance with guidance and instructions from the state. Mr. Mesa.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. That's, to date, has been the longest resolution. Is there a motion for approval?
If I can have a couple of comments before we
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you for the efforts in putting this resolution together, and I support it. And there's one thing that passed my judgment as we were going through this in closed session, and that is the list of hotspots for that. And something in here that would expand that if needed, to give you the authority to expand that list if needed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The last item.
Yeah. And then in addition to that is just an additional comment. If we could, I'm not sure I agree with some of John Sheedy's comments earlier, where we've got these elected officials for the different entities for a purpose, right? And so our job is to manage the school district, and the city's job is to manage the city, and the county's job is to manage the county. Does not mean that I don't want that collaboration between those entities. And I'd like to see if we couldn't extend that to a broader radius, including into Acuna and maybe the state of Coahuila, to where we get some more information if it occurs. And so I'd like for you to reach out to do that as a separate subject. But anyway, good job, and I support. So,
Thank you. Mr. Orfeld?
Just a quick comment question. I know we're coming up on starting registration for Cardwell for next year. There, so that department that would have close contact with parents all the time, are we going to put that off during this time period, or how is that kind of going to play out?
Absolutely. We're going to limit as much exposure as possible. It'll be a little harder to register over the summer if we need to, but that's what we'll have to do. We're also having discussions about what do we do about registering new students who might show up Monday moving in from somewhere else. We also have to have that discussion because we're not ready to just start registration procedures on Monday, even for current students in any kind of pre-K through 12 setting as of right now. So we'll have those discussions on Monday. But right now, we won't be registering anybody.
Okay, and then the second to the last thing, as we kind of discussed earlier about Monday, those parents or those teachers that might need time Monday, the principals will handle that on a case-to-case basis, or?
Yes, sir. What we did last night is we sent every principal a script so that they're going to activate their calling log here in an hour or so, and they're going to make sure that 100% of the personnel gets contacted. And we've asked the principals to have the teachers report at 10:30 in the morning, because we need to regroup one more time with the principals and give them any last-minute instructions. There's a list of people that we need to gather who have been exposed so that we can provide them the quarantine letter, and the principals will take note of those that can't come in on Monday, and we'll excuse them. I know that that everybody's cooperation will prevail, and that people that can come to work will come to work, and we'll get the work going. And those that can't come to work, it won't be because they're taking advantage of the system. They just really can't come to work, and we'll work something out. But I think that because of the situation that we're in, very few people, if any, would take advantage of this and not pitch in. It'll work out.
And this the last thing, as Mr. Smith said, I thank you and the principals and staff for working late the last couple of days to get this prepared, and to the teachers, the staff, the community. It's going to be, it's a learning experience. We've never gone through anything like this in recorded memory, and there'll be some bumps in the road as we start out, but please have patience and know that we're doing everything to protect our students, staff, teachers, and the community by going forward with this. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. Mr. Contreras?
Yes, sir. Just to, because as soon as we adjourn this meeting, it's going to spread like wildfire here. So I know we're talking about the teachers and principals, but what about just to clarify, just the paraprofessionals, cafeteria workers, the aides, what is going to be their role after this, that, and then I fully concur and agree with everybody on the board, and especially Mr. Smith, to contact the authorities, not only here, right, but across, with Mexico, Mayor de Los Santos there, and make sure we have in contact with their communication, the lines of communication are open. And then just to thank all the community and principals and staff, Dr. Rios, I think, and I believe you guys have done an excellent job, and for everybody just to keep a calm and collective mind, like Josh just said, it's going to be a bumpy road, but we're going to get through it, God willing.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. And I also want to just remind Dr. Rios that the anxiety that teachers have and students in regard to STAR testing, if you could allow us, if you could,
Wasn't me.
if you could inform us immediately in regard to any TA communication in regard to the Commissioner of Education, again, allowing any waivers for testing requirements. I think that's crucial. Mr. Smith.
So I'd like to make a motion to put this in action.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, Mr. Smith has motioned that we approve this resolution, seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Again, I want to thank you for your attendance here today. There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Mr. Orfeld, taking it.
Do we need to sign this as
Yes.
everybody? Okay,
Yes.
before we leave?
Yes.
Perfect, yeah.
Thank you for reminding. Motion by Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Overfeld, motion was Mr. Smith, and we need to sign this. So again, we're adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance. Have a great weekend.